feel so abstract. Yeah, it's complicated what you say, the way you act. Well, it makes me so confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't you just make up your mind? My heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be friends, but there is a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting. Still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be.
Hello, it's Michelle from Maybe Amici, and I am so happy to be here with you today to share with you the projects that I did. I did stenciling with watercolor powders, pigment powders, and yeah, so happy to be here to share this with you. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know. No, it does not matter at all what order you put the powders on. If it's light or dark first, I just kind of just grab whatever powders and just start layering them, adding them on. I don't really pay attention to lighter or darker ones at all. So bad dark, I say those. Do you say the two stencils? You could do something. I do normally save bad dye. I don't even know that I realized that I actually threw that away. I do normally try to stack them up as well to give them dimensions. So I didn't even realize that I did that. I have actually used stencils as embossing folders. I actually did one recently that I did use stencil as an embossing folder, and I do love how you can use embossing folder was embossing. Sorry, I got completely lost there. Actually, no, I was thinking embossing powders. No, I've actually never used embossing folders as stencils before. I will definitely have to give that a try. Stencils as embossing folders. Oh my goodness, I completely read that wrong. I actually did use a stencil once as an embossing folder. I didn't quite get the look that I wanted or the dimension that I wanted, so I wasn't quite happy with it, how it turned out, but I do definitely have to try that again. I think it's all figuring out the same with your die cutting machine. Do you ever have a problem with the powder dissolving all the way and then leaving residue? As with the powder not dissolving all the way, and then you sometimes have little bits of powder still left on it. Is that what that means? If so, then yes, sometimes I do. If I don't add enough water, I do find that sometimes all the powder does not get activated by the water, and you do have a little bit of residue. Sometimes you will have just little kind of, I don't know if you want to call it little bumps from some of the pigment powder that wasn't dissolved or activated all the way by the water. But absolutely, you do still get that. And if you run your finger over it sometimes, like when I go over this one, I can feel the powder. That's kind of nice. I kind of like that. It gives a little bit of a texture to it. But I do always find that I do have a little bit of powder that does not get completely activated or dissolved by the water. Oh, thank you so much. I did find it was handy to leave the mistakes in there to kind of show what to do and what not to do, because with it is such a fine line, how much water to use and how much not to use, as well as powder and whatnot. And sorry, what was the second part of that question? Using stencils as embossing folders, it's finding a certain sandwich with your embossing machine. Instead of, you have to use it's kind of like a silicone embossing mat. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct term for it, but that will just kind of push into your stencil to leave the impression um, of the design of the stencil, if that's making sense how I'm explaining it there. Um, but yeah, so you want to have a silicone mat um, on top of your stencil. I think that's what I did, instead of the harder cutting mats that you would use for dies. My favorite tool, I am probably going to have to say, oh my goodness, it's just a toss up right now. I absolutely love using the Lindy's Magical Pigment, the magical powders, but I am also really loving my Better Press right now. But I think other than that, my favorite tool is the pigment powders. So many things you can do with them, and they are so much fun to use, and all the colors. They're an incredible tool to have in your crafty toolbox, or at least in mine. The spray that I actually used is this right here, Stick It. Now I'm in Europe, so I know people in North America and Canada and the US, they use a different one. I can't quite remember what it is called, but this is the one that I am able to get here in Switzerland. So it is from Do Crafts. It's Stick It Spray Adhesive. And yeah, I just sprayed the back of the stencil really well, and it works perfectly. And is a nice repositional one. I think stencils that work best with this technique are more open ones. One that I've had actually really good success with is, just a minute, is from Altenew. And it is this one here. It is the Elegant Swirls. So I find the ones with the larger open areas work out really well compared to more finer detailed areas. Although you can get good success with the finer detailed ones, but definitely ones with the open larger surface areas work really good with this technique. Tape you can definitely absolutely use to adhere the stencil down. The only reason why I use a spray adhesive is you're able to adhere the entire stencil to your paper, so it kind of cuts back on any seeping of the water or powder that you might have that gets underneath the stencil design. But you can absolutely give it a try with tape, most definitely. Because I always do use tape around the outside of it as well sometimes, just also to protect the paper if the paper is larger than the stencil. I actually quite often use just a regular, where is it? I can't find it right now. I used to use just a regular masking tape or painter's tape. And what I do to kind of take away some stickiness is I stick it on my clothes for about 10, 20 seconds and then go to the paper with it. It's not as sticky. It won't tear your paper, but it's still sticky enough to hold your stencil down to your paper. But then also washi tape helps, but washi tape does work, but I like using masking tape or painter's tape. I have used my Better Press or Hot Fill, and I absolutely love it. The detail that you get with the hot filling with that is pretty incredible, and so easy to do as well. Pigment powders. Well, here actually, let me see. I have pigment powders. Here's one. It is it's like a mica. Well, I don't want to open it up to spill it everywhere, but it's like a mica powder, and some of them have many different colors within it. For example, Lindy's has a black one, and I used it once, and it had pretty much all the colors of the rainbow in it. It was pretty incredible once you saw it activated with water. But pretty much what the pigment powders are is a mica powder with many different colors within that are activated by water. You can actually also use them with embossing pastes and whatnot. And an embossing powder is actually made up of if I remember this correctly, it is made up of little tiny particles of plastic, and some of them have, as you can see, this one here is a sparkle one. It has little bits of sparkle with them, all the different colors in them. And when you need to use this with an embossing, it's a ultra slow drying embossing ink. It's kind of like a glue where you would use the embossing ink first, and then you would sprinkle on your embossing powder. The embossing powder will stick to the ink, and then once you heat it with your heat embossing tool, it will actually melt all the powder, and it kind of all solidifies. It's really, really cool and pretty magical to watch that happen. I love, yeah. They're both of these types of powders are both completely different, and they both have different properties and do completely different things, but they are so very fun to use and just watch them in action. Really, really cool. For doing this technique with watercolor paper, I have a few different ones, but the one watercolor paper that I actually do quite like is by Canson. Let me see if I can find it here. This is one that I do actually really like. So it's Canson XL. It is 140 pound. Sorry, right there. So this is one powder that I really like. It is not, it's fairly inexpensive. And it's really great to use, which is good that when it's not a super expensive paper either, because some watercolor papers can be pretty expensive. And if you're just really playing around with techniques, you will have some pieces that don't work out. You don't want to be spending $40-50 on a pad of watercolor paper to have to throw some of it in the garbage if it doesn't work out. Watercolor. I have never actually used watercolor pencil shavings because I actually do not have any watercolor pencils. Yeah, I do not have those, but that actually sounds pretty cool. I will definitely have to get some, I think, and try. If someone that's just getting started with technique, what's your just have fun, play around with all of the colors. Do not be afraid or upset if some of them don't work out as you had hoped. I've had many pieces that actually turned out absolutely horrible that I just put right in the garbage. Don't be discouraged by it, and just keep on trying. It's a very fine line to figure out how much water is too much water and not enough, and also with the powder. So it's all really just trial and error and finding out what works best with you and the type of stencil that works as well. Yeah, it's just have fun with it, and don't get upset if some pieces don't turn out as you had hoped. It can get messy, absolutely, with these pigment powders, because when you do spray with water, some of the powder will kind of go all over your work surface. So you do want to make sure you protect your work surface. A way to clean your hands, actually, you can wear rubber gloves when you're working with these powders, if you don't want to get powder all over your hands. But I don't get too worried about my fingers. I do often have stained fingers for a few days. It's not that I don't have that big of a problem with it, but just soap and water, and even sometimes just some hand wipes and whatnot work. But eventually the color will come off your fingers. But if you're afraid and you don't want to get your hands completely covered, then yeah, just rubber gloves, rubber disposable gloves actually work really, really great to protect your hands. The mat, I can't remember what it was that it is actually not a silicone mat. It is I normally have a glass mat on my surface that I work on. But I find when doing videos, you get the glare from it. So I actually have, it's not a silicone mat, but it's just a big black craft mat, I guess if you want to call it. I think it's one of those kind of self-healing mats. I'm just looking at it over off to the side, but yeah, it's just a big, huge black mat. I don't know what you would call it, but I think it's one of those self-healing craft mats. Yeah, but it's not silicone. It's some kind of plastic. Yeah, I did actually used to use. I had. I still have it. It's a mat from Altenew. It's a really thin white one. It's really, really great mat, but I used it after once or twice, and because it is white, the ink's completely stained it. I used to really like using it, but that's why I use black. Oh my goodness, best craft room organization tip. If you saw my craft room right now, My craft room is always, I'm always trying to make it better and and organize things better. And um, I think the best organization tip I can give probably is have your most used, most loved tools close by you. I also have one of those rolly carts from IKEA that I keep all of my coloring mediums in. So all of my alcohol markers are in there, my watercolor pens, all of those are in there. But yeah, I try to keep the same kind of things all in one area. I have a big organizer drawer, Alex uh, cupboard thing, whatever you want to call it, from IKEA, which has great huge drawers. I have one for all of my Lindy's pigment powders. I have one for all of my embossing powders. I keep all of my so I keep all of those things all together in yeah, in the same drawers, same rolling cart. And yeah, so I have all of those tools handy right there so I can grab them. Any crafty quirks, that things that I like that others don't? Oh my goodness. Crafty quirks, I have absolutely no idea. Um, I am not quite sure actually. Things that you like that others don't. Hmm. I'm not actually quite sure if I do. My favorite technique, I'm probably gonna actually say is the stencil one that I did in my video. This stencil technique with the powders, I absolutely love. I love it. Is such an easy, once you realize what works for you best, it is such an easy, such a fun technique to do. All the different embossing folders you can try, all the different colors. I absolutely, it makes such a quick card, but it still makes you go, wow, that must have taken so much longer than it did because of all the different oh my goodness, all the different color combinations that you get, and it just makes it seem like you spent so much more time on it than it actually took. And I absolutely love that technique. I would probably have to say that is my favorite one because it always just makes you go, wow, that looks pretty amazing. What colors would you? Oh my goodness. Lindy's. They actually. The great thing about Lindy's is they actually have their pigment powders that come in sets of. They all come in sets of 5, which is really. You can get individual ones. You can just buy colors on their own, but their sets are really great to have because there's all colors that all go really well together. They were planned that way. But I'm gonna say, if you're just starting out, maybe just kind of go with a set or colors that kind of call out to you that you gravitate towards. They do have sets that are just a regular flat color and others that do have like gold glittery shimmer in them, which are really great. But maybe, yeah, they do have a really great they have some set, yeah, it's kind of hard to say because I think for everyone it's different, but maybe just kind of go with ones that maybe aren't so bold. And at first it's kind of hard. Yeah, I just kind of go for all the colors. um but yeah, just kind of go with whatever calls out to you and go big and bold. Or they do have really nice softer color sets that you can go for. Yes, yeah, it's kind of hard. Yeah. Do I plan my projects? Absolutely not. I kind of, I have said to myself before that I do need to plan my projects ahead, but I just, a lot of time I just kind of just get with the supplies that I want to work with. And then I just kind of go from there. I don't have an idea set in my head. I don't do sketches ahead of time as what I'm going to do. I just kind of which I really should, because it kind of would cut down on time sometimes, but I just kind of go for it and just see what I end up with. All right. Thank you so very much for having me. I really hope you all give this technique a try, have fun with it, and yeah, share your creations if you do make something. Thank you so much all for having me. Have a great day.